Greetings, my lovelies, and thank you for stopping by the circle today. Today we're going to talk about structure, primarily the differences between the 3-act structure and a new sort of structure that's kind of gaining a lot of action, the 4-act structure. So let's go ahead and jump on in without wasting any more time. And first and foremost, yes, I know that my planning board behind me is gone. It's empty, I should say, actually. With the 3rd book of A Tale in Blade Darkness nearing its completion, I don't need this anymore. And I've already cleared it out to roughly plan my next book, which is going to be a bit of a breather in between the series, because I think 3 books is my max in a particular world before I start to get irritated with it, struggling with it, and I don't want my struggle busing to come through in my writing. But speaking of struggle busing, let's go ahead and talk about our structure systems. Now, everyone is familiar with the 3-act structure. It's what we're taught in school. It is what most classical literature is based off of. Hell, all plays still typically have a 3-act system. But in case you have no idea what I'm talking about, a 3-act system is how we divide up the storytelling in our novels or just storytelling in general. We have our starting point, our setup, where we are introduced to our world, our characters, the problems and conflicts that happen. Next, we have the rising actions, which also include the crisis. So these are increased stakes. We get to meet more characters, there's a lot more action in this, a lot more problems. And it's also the biggest chunk of the book because it takes place directly from when your protagonist leaves to start to go to the newer world where they get to experience all this crisis and fun and mayhem, past the midpoint all the way through the climax. And then the last one is sort of the resolution and winding down. People tend to think that the 3rd act is the climax, and you can start a 3rd act with the climax. There's no real hard set ending to it, but your 3rd act is mostly wrapping up the big climactic things, winding down, and then leveling the playing field once again. So just with that, we can see why a lot of people may struggle with the 3-act system, because the 2nd act has a shit ton of stuff that has to happen into it. The 1st act is typically the easiest. You get to the point of where, like, hey, I'm going off in the wild blue yonder, this is done. Now I have to journey to Mordor by walking. It's a lot. And a lot of authors and writers tend to lose steam or struggle because it is a big thing, and they just get to a point where they're kind of trudging through. And when the writer is suffering, that sometimes bleeds into our writing and turns it into absolute garbage. Now, I am only speaking from personal experience, and my experiences are not your experiences and are not the experiences as a whole. But I know that when I am struggle busing, just in general with life and everything else, my writing is 10,000 times worse. So I have made the decision in my life to where if I am struggle busing, I stop writing, because I'm gonna have to edit it anyway, and that's going to take forever to unfuck what I wrote, so I might as well just not write it and write when I feel a little bit better. Does that mean that I sometimes miss my own deadlines? Yes, it does. Am I trying to implement new things to make that better so it doesn't happen? Yes, I am, but it is a work in progress, and I am only human. Anyways, so the 4-act system came about as a modification of the 3-act system, as a way to help ease that 2nd act slump. And what it does is it splits the 2nd act into 2 different parts. So you have the part where your protagonist leaves to the midpoint, and then it picks up after the midpoint through the rising action. Smaller chunks are easier to manage than big things. That's why I like to revise my books in chunks. When I finish an act, I go back to the beginning of that act, and I go ahead and I work through my edits in it so that my ending voice matches my beginning voice. Because I always struggle with starting things, and by the time I get to the end, I've kind of found my flow, and I just want to make sure that my front half is not choppy and as smooth as my back half. This can go. Sorry, I have the mind of a 12-year-old. A lot of the people just do it by chapters and so on and so forth. Anyways, the point that I'm trying to make is that chunking and breaking large things up into smaller tasks can be helpful. It makes you feel a little less overwhelmed. Smaller goals end up adding to bigger successes because it's a lot easier to reach smaller milestones than it is to like jump over Mount Everest, if that makes any sense. Probably not. And for those of you who are Save the Cat style writers like myself, I love Save the Cat just simply because I think of my books as visually as movies, and this takes the movie format and adapts it to books because essentially it's all storytelling. But anyways, how that would look if you use the Save the Cat system is the Act 1 is the same as it was before. There are no changes. The only difference is that when you introduce your subplot, your B plot, as it's referred to, which can be like romances or just character development or introducing of new characters and like a parallel problem that's kind of rolling along with things, to your midpoint. And then from your midpoint, so then the third act becomes them trying to fix a problem and them doing it poorly, and it ends up at the Dark Night of Soul, where they're wallowing in self-pity and they learn that final piece of information that they need in order to win. And once they get that nugget, then it moves on into the fourth act, which is where they have the new plan, they execute the plan beautifully, they have the resolution, and things wind all the way down, and they're either back to where they started but different, or moved on to the next thing. Now, whether or not the 4-act system is going to work for you is really just going to be up to you. I say give it a try. You never know. I don't necessarily think so much about acts as more of like strong, hard lines, but more of just like fluctuation points. While I plan 3 acts, I don't really ever strictly follow that point, primarily because sometimes things just kind of flow a little bit differently, especially if you're working with multiple storylines, the way I have been in the past couple years. So give it a go and see if that doesn't help ease the second act slump. You might even could apply this to series as a whole, and then when you're writing a series, of course, that's longer, you're going to reach a bit of a slump, like how I've reached my slump with the 3rd book of A Tale of Blatant Darkness, and I need to take a bit of a breather with that one though. But speaking of A Tale of Blatant Darkness, the title release is coming up soon. I'm trying to get back in the swing of marketing things, and so I'm terribly awkward, so deal with it. Anyways, if you would like to be part of my title release event, please be sure to fill out the Google form below. That way I can mail it to you and we can all celebrate the completion of this wonderful novel. I have committed to dates for things, and if you want to know what all of those dates are, be sure to go check out my website. I also revamped it a bit. So yay me! Like I said, been busy doing a lot of things. Anyways, my website has a bunch of other information on it, and like all of my current books, and my newsletter, which it goes out quarterly, and I have a little lovely giveaway not giveaway, but a freebie for this quarter's newsletter. Anyways, that is all the time that I have for you today, my lovelies. I hope you have a wonderful summer. I am finally free. School's out. I don't have summer school or extended school year or anything. I get to be a full-time writer for at least a couple of months. Anyways, I will see you all next time around and have a wonderful day. Bye!